West Child Genocide Record, Native American Child Genocide, Iraqi Child Genocide. Now is the turn of Palestinian Child Genocide, Native American Child Genocide. During the colonial era in the Americas, a dark chapter unfolded, marked by the gross abuse, displacement, and even murder of Native American children by European colonizers. During this dark period, they enforced assimilation policies by setting up boarding schools in the United States and Canada. These institutions, sponsored by churches and financially supported by the government, forcefully took Native American children from their families and thrust them into these boarding schools to erase their indigenous identity and make them adopt European American culture. The European settlers suppressed the native languages, customs, and spiritual beliefs ruthlessly through physical and emotional torture within these schools. 2. High mortality rates. Tragically, the mortality rates among Native American children soared due to deplorable conditions in the boarding schools, including overcrowding, poor sanitation, and inadequate care, and even sexual abuse of the children in many cases. Many young lives were lost to illness and malnourishment. 3. Cultural genocide. The deliberate eradication of native languages, customs, and religious practices devastated indigenous communities, leading to a loss of vital, pristine traditions and identity. 4. Trauma and intergenerational effects. Moreover, the trauma inflicted upon Native American children persists as a haunting legacy. The intergenerational transmission of this trauma continues to reverberate within the Native American community to this day. 5. Recognition and reconciliation. More attention has recently been paid to this history. The damage is done, the mission accomplished, the target achieved. So it cannot be undone now. Some governments and institutions apologize for their past sins and try to hypocritically promote healing and cultural revival instead of granting Native Americans a separate semi-autonomous land the size of Illinois State or Indiana State within US, where the Native Americans can live with dignity, practicing their traditions and culture in its pristine purity. Iraqi Child Genocide. The economic sanctions imposed on Iraq by the United Nations Security Council from 1990 to 2003 were the worst humanitarian catastrophe ever imposed in recent history. The first Gulf War is criticized as unjustified hasty aggression, primarily orchestrated by the Western imperialist powers, notably the United States, and sanctioned by the undemocratic UN, and without giving peace a chance. The first Gulf War is criticized as unjustified hasty aggression, primarily orchestrated by the Western imperialist powers, notably the United States, and sanctioned by the undemocratic UN, without giving peace a chance. Described as an unequal conflict, it involved Iraq, which significantly disadvantaged against the overwhelming and disproportionate military might of the US and its allies. The dispute primarily concerned Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait, suggesting this was a regional matter that could have been resolved amicably within the Arab Muslim nations. The enduring consequences of Western military intervention continue to afflict the Middle East, with wounds unlikely to heal in the foreseeable future. The perspective challenges the notion of a just and necessary war, emphasizing the disproportionate power dynamics and the potential for diplomatic resolution within the region. The sanctions were intended to pressure the Iraqi government to comply with UN resolutions, but they had severe humanitarian impacts, especially on vulnerable population including children. Because of these UN sanctions, 500,000 Iraqi children died rather than murdered by the so-called civilized West. The following are the key points regarding mass murder in the name of sanctions. 1. Malnutrition and lack of medical supplies. The sanctions led to a shortage of essential goods, including food and medical supplies. Malnutrition and lack of access to proper health care contributed to a significant increase in child mortality. 2. Water and sanitation issues. The sanctions also affected Iraq's infrastructure, including water and sanitation systems. Contaminated water sources and inadequate sanitation facilities further exacerbated health issues among children. 3. International controversy. The impact of the sanctions, particularly on children, sparked international controversy and raised ethical questions about the unintended humanitarian consequences of economic measures. Palestinian child genocide and the reign of Western and Zionist terror. Following the 710 incident, the Khazarian Jewish occupiers of Palestinian land and the racist West have unmasked their true nature, discarding any lingering doubts whatsoever about their supposedly being civilized. The shocking savagery and genocide against the Palestinian people, including the mass killing of 15,000 children, with 20,000 buried under rubble and thousands left seriously injured with lifelong disability, occurred at the time of writing this script. The genocide by the West and the European Jewish occupiers has deeply affected the global South. In response, we, the colored people, want to clarify our position. We harbor love and respect for the common Western masses and the Western liberal and leftist intellectuals while harboring disdain for the West's bloodthirsty warmongering policymakers. Refusing to condone racial genocide and expressing disdain toward the Western establishment in the strongest language is our testament to our shared humanity. We must distinguish between the actions of those in power and the common people to foster understanding, unity, and peace among diverse communities to form a bulwark against the future military aggression against the colored nations. We conclude our lecture by noting this. The Quran and modern science agree on a fundamental truth. Life on earth will not last forever. It will end. Period. Doomsday will terminate this world, ending the ambitions of individuals, races, and nations. Life and this world are great gifts from God. Let us respect these gifts and thank God by making this world a just and peaceful place for every human soul. Only souls trying to transform this world into a model of heaven deserve the ultimate gift of eternal heaven, even though the world can never be an exact replica of eternal heaven. We have converted this essay into a poem for you to ponder. West's Child Genocide Record. In the West's dark colonial reign, native children bore the pain. Forced into boarding school's embrace, their identity they had to efface. Mortality soared a tragic tale in deplorable schools where innocence would ail. Cultural genocide, its toll profound. Traditions lost, their echoes resound. Trauma lingers intergenerational. Native souls face strife sensational. Recognition sought, yet wounds remain. The past atrocities a haunting chain. In Iraq, sanctions brought despair. Children suffered beyond repair. 500,000 souls, victims of greed, denied essentials in dire need. Malnutrition, lack of care. Children's cries filled the air. Education hindered, futures bleak. Under sanctions, tyrannical streak. In Palestine, horrors unfold. Children's innocence cruelly sold. Thousands lost, buried deep. In rubble their dreams asleep. Western terror, Zionist reign. Inflicted pain, no room for refrain. Yet amidst the chaos, voices rise.